It'll be way more expensive. Oh, yes, so he'll never sign with Toronto. Oh, hi, we're on the air. Okay. Hey, everyone. Yes, so we're streaming live now. And really quickly, we didn't get any help from you guys out there for the prog rock argument from yesterday, but I didn't get it. You guys didn't get anything either, for what it's worth. Evan perhaps summarized best by saying, arguing about which band is prog rock makes you want to put a gun to my head, but that's okay, Evan. No. Sorry. I dig prog rock, and I dig the prog rock talk. Bring on the prog podcast.
There you go.
I'm not sure if Styx is prog, but they definitely suck.
Oh.
Well, now they do. Now that they're basically like a karaoke band, but in the 70s,
they just put out a new album. They're not a karaoke band.
I know. I'm just saying it's. Come on,
just be a mic. It's fine.
Oh God.
Whatever.
All right, let's get going here. Ready?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, Hockey World. It's Thursday, August 24th, 2017.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I am Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is a podcast that comes every Monday through Friday, all year long, whether it's summer, whether there's news, whether there's nothing to talk about at all. We're here for you to get you through it. And we're getting close, and we're only, a month from now, we'll really be in great places as far as hockey goes. But,
actually, in a couple weeks, like rookie tournaments will be starting.
A couple weeks.
Yeah, a couple weeks away. This is the last 2 weeks of August are definitely, this is when a lot of people take off. But we do have some news, and we're going to do a lot of quick hitting things today. And then we are going to get into our preview of the Calgary Flames, which was a fun one to work on. So I think we'll have a fun time doing it. And to start with Calgary, actually, a little bit, because my rumor that I'm putting out today, and it seems to be gaining a lot of strength. And I've been talking about kind of all summer that this was the only place I really was hearing that had serious interest in Jagr is the Calgary Flames. And I've mentioned it before. I mentioned it many times, I think. But Jagr does bring a certain something to a team still at this point in his career. But I can see why that something wouldn't be something you'd want around for more than like 2 years. I could see where Florida would be, where Florida's hesitant to have him back. And I mean, Jagr's initial thing, and I think this is really hard to get unless you've been around these guys enough to see it firsthand sometimes in the locker room, is what Jagr means to the players who play hockey. Like, these guys do look up to him. They do see him as something that, like I know a couple of them have jokingly said to me, man, I used to play him all the time in video hockey. He was the guy I was, that kind of thing. So when these kids grew up, Jagr was, Jagr played with Mario Lemieux, for crying out loud. That's a legendary thing.
Yeah, but on this team, he's going to have to play a third line role. Is he willing to do that? Is he? And he's not going to. And to be honest, on this team, he's not top power play.
I know. That's going to be the big question, because he does definitely. I think what I heard is this is the first time that Jagr hasn't really put a lot of the restrictions on for signing. And that's why that's why he didn't make it in Philly. That's why he didn't stay in Boston. Even was at one point, when he was renegotiating a contract, those teams wanted him to stay, but they all said, he said he would be wanted to be guaranteed first or second line minutes.
This could also be a leverage play here, because one of the few restricted free agents that are unsigned is Sam Bennett. And Sam Bennett primarily, he was drafted as a center, but he's been playing right wing for them. If you look at their depth chart, it's either Frolik or him is the number one offensive right winger. And if Jagr comes in, then I think Bennett will lose some offensive opportunities. He hasn't signed his new deal yet. I'm assuming that they're haggling over a price tag, and he's not in a position to demand a long-term contract, so he's probably going to get a bridge deal. But if they bring in a Jagr, then I think it would limit Bennett's numbers, because Jagr would be put in offensive possibilities.
Yeah, but Troy Brouwer would be on the top wing before Jagr.
I don't know. Troy Brouwer did not have a big year last year.
Yeah, but he's good enough, experienced enough, digs enough in the corners. He still had 13 goals.
Yeah, I think. We both know and like Bennett's offensive ability. I think if you're talking about who's in a better position to grow as a player and be a top line, top six guy, I think it's Bennett. I mean, Brouwer is a good role player, second line, third line, maybe even, not fourth line for them. But yeah, I think Bennett would be in a position to be a top six guy on that team.
I'm just saying I go Brouwer over Frolik is all I'm saying.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But Frolik had a good year last year.
He had a good year. He had 17 goals, no question. I think, like I said, the greasiness of Brouwer, I think, even though Frolik is a terrific two-way player, I like the greasiness of Brouwer. I do.
Yeah, I do too. I kind of agree with you there. I mean, I think that Jagr will get more minutes than you expect, but I also think that Jagr doesn't want to play as many minutes as he played in Florida. I think there was too much emphasis put on him in Florida.
Well, the injuries probably helped cause that, and it was a bad fit in that regard.
And that's why I still give, and there are still rumors, as you're reporting, of him seeking NHL jobs. But if you think about it, the story that came out a couple weeks ago about him going to play in the Czech Republic, him going to play in the Olympics, and then coming after the Olympics to play in the NHL makes a lot of sense, because he probably wouldn't have to work very hard, wouldn't get a ton of ice time, and would come in with maybe 15 games to go in the NHL season fresh and able to choose a team, and he could, come in for a prorated amount. I think that's just as likely as him signing on with restrictions to an NHL team.
Yeah.
I think so. The only thing about that is I think Jagr is a real habitual person, and I think he wants to be in a training camp. He wants to be doing all this stuff, that he really, I always got the sense that he feels like he has to, at his age, he has to work harder than anybody else, right? To make this, to stay in shape and to be able to play. And he can't skate, as we know, with everybody else, but he still can shield the puck as well as anybody in the league. And he brings that to the table. So I don't know. I'm more along the lines of, I think he's going to play in the NHL this year, but it makes sense on a certain level, but he also has retired from international play. I do think he doesn't like the pressure of the international play anymore. I don't think he loves the old Czech system. I don't think he's a fan of the coaching and all that stuff that goes on over there.
You mean the checks and balances?
No, yeah, that's right. They have definitely an interesting international hockey group over there in the Czech world. So I don't think that's a big thing for Jagr there, but it could happen. I mean, you can see it if it happens. He might end up saying that this was the plan all along, but I don't think it is. Like, that's how I feel about it. I feel like he could say, "Oh yeah, the plan all along was this," but I think the plan all along was to get into camp with the team in the NHL. I really do. I think that he's about that. And he does bring a lot. He brings a lot of experience, and he brings a real workman ethic to the team, and he is like a coach. He is like he's like a player coach, which we don't really have anybody comparable to him in the league. And he has like a definite impact when he first gets to a team, and I don't know how long that impact lasts, if it's a whole year or if now it's like a half a year or what, but he has an impact.
Definitely. That's why I still think it's better to sign him in the second half of the year. I do.
Yeah.
If I'm a team, that's what I'm going to try and do. Like, I don't want Jaromir Jagr out there to start the year. I just don't.
I mentioned Sam Bennett, and we'll talk more about the Flames a little later on. But in looking up for things to talk about for today on the show, there are still 15 restricted free agents that are not signed.
I know.
And we talked Pasternak, and we've talked Connor Brown a few times, but a guy like Marcus Foligno, who got traded from Buffalo to Minnesota, he's still unsigned. Wenberg, who had a big year, Russ, for Columbus, he's unsigned. Nikita Zadorov, who we mentioned a couple days ago regarding Colorado's situation on defense. He's been threatening to go to the KHL since late July, and he's still around. And a guy like Bo Horvat, who scored 20 goals last year, I think he's looking for the long-term money, and I'm not sure if Vancouver wants to pay him the long-term money.
Note to Zadorov's agent, it's better to go to the KHL before the season starts than to stay here and threaten to go to KHL while the season's already occurred. That sort of ruins your bargaining power. Yeah. It really does, because I have a source over there, and Ska has too many defensemen already. I'm sure the good teams already have too many defensemen, so he's not going to be on a good team. He's going to end up going to a middling team there.
Yeah. And yeah, once they've gone through their exhibition schedule and they've set up their core of, say, 8 or 9 defensemen, you know, it's going to be tough to get a position there too. I mean, yes, you're right. You know, a team like Magnitogorsk or CS or CSKA or SKA, they're loaded, but teams like Dynamo Riga or other lower division teams, yeah, they may have openings, but it's not exactly a exciting place to go to or a destination place.
Here's an interesting thing for time on the ice for Jagr. He actually played more with the Devils in 2013 than any previous year, but he actually played more for the Devils even in 2014-15 when it dropped a little just to 1741. Like last year, his 17 minutes was the least he's played in a long time since Philly. Philly had him at 16-20. That's probably where you want him.
Yeah. No, we mentioned Athanasiou yesterday. We mentioned Duclair as part of the Coyotes preview. But here, a couple other guys here. Josh Anderson from the Blue Jackets scored 17 goals, only averaging over 12 minutes a night. He's obviously going to be looking for a bigger salary than his $700,000 that he made last year.
Leverage.
Yeah, and Damon Severson, who had 31 points last year, but was a minus 31. So I'm sure that Ray Shero is going to play that up. That defense is not very good, and he's one of their better young defensemen. And he's probably looking for, that 6-year deal, making, maybe making what Adam Larson made on his contract with the Devils, around $4.5 million.
Yeah, the problem with Severson is, and this is the problem with slotting guys. When you're a team like the Devils and you're not the best defensive team, you're slotting Severson as a 1. He's not a 1, but he wants to get paid like a 1 now because that's what he's been doing.
Right.
That's why he's still not been paid. And that's a tough spot. Like, how do you get past that? I mean, as a GM, it's very tricky because the minute the Devils have a better option to be a number 1, Severson won't be a number 1 anymore. But until then, he is.
But it's tough. It's tough to make that argument, Russ, when you're the Devils and you've got $20 million in available cap space. The guy is saying, okay, I'm one of your better defensemen. Defensemen of my ilk are being paid in the range that I'm asking for. Come on, you've got there's no.
But the Devils are looking beyond this year, and that's the thing. They don't want a step-on type contract with the Rangers because he was playing a number 1 center role, even though he's not a number 1 center. To also happen to Severson, because what will happen is there'll be a day he won't be a number 1. He'll be paid like a number 1, and that will throw the Devils' cap out of whack.
Well, I mean, right now they're paying Andy Green $5 million, and Andy Green is not a $5 million defenseman. That was a contract from a previous administration, so Shero can't really be held accountable for that. But still, I don't think Severson should be punished for that. It's like, so you gave one defenseman a contract that was probably a couple $1 million more than he deserved. Well, okay, I'm not that guy.
All right, just as an example, and I'm very high on Damon Severson, as you know, but are you going to pay him like Ryan McDonough?
No. Well, I mean, see, the thing is, McDonough's on a contract that's way below. McDonough's making $4.7 million.
No, but I mean, at the time when he got it, it was, I would say in the upper, 10% of defenseman contracts. Are you really going to give that to Severson? We're only talking about 31 points. Now, maybe on a better team, he'd have 40, but we're not talking about 50 or 60 points as a defenseman.
Well, that's the risk you're taking here. That's the dice roll, is the fact that what do you think, what does Ray Shero think of Severson as a defenseman? If he thinks he's a top pairing, maybe not a 1, but a 2, he's got to pay him, I would say, close to what Green is making. Now, Green is under contract for another 3 years at $5 million. Who knows if he'll finish out that contract, or if they buy him out, or what, or trade him off somewhere. But I mean, I think Severson, he's only 23 years old. I think he's over 30 years old. I'm not 100% sure, but I think Severson's a better defenseman. It's it's a meritocracy here. You pay him what he's worth, and what he's worth based on last year is probably over $4 million a year.
Yeah, I mean, I might give him just slightly over 4, but I bet you he wants more than that.
Maybe.
No, I think so.
I'm pretty sure.
Well, no, he definitely wants more than that. But the question is, I mean, we really are running out of money. And, it was interesting. I talked to somebody today about the, oh gosh, why am I name losing my mind for a second?
Andy Green's 34 years old, so he's not going to finish out that contract.
No,
probably.
Big UFA defenseman who played for Toronto and Buffalo and all that stuff.
Cody Franzen.
Thank you, Cody. I talked to somebody about Cody Franzen, who it looks like there's starting to be some talk about Cody Franzen again.
Sorry.
That's picking up, and we're going to start now. But I think that has to do with, we at least said there's some defensemen who are available who are college aged.
Right. Well, let's talk about that for a second, because and it came from our favorite agent, Alan Walsh, yesterday.
Not familiar with him. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, me neither. He must be new in the business.
Yeah.
He posted a video of his client, Roman Polak, skating. Now, remember, Polak broke his fibula in the playoffs last year, so he was showing that he's close to 100%, and now he's concentrating. Now that he's almost ready to play, now he's concentrating on finding a contract. Let me say something. If you're an agent and it's August 23rd and you're only now starting to concentrate on a contract, you are abrogating your responsibility as an agent. This
is unfortunately typical of power agents. Like they don't pay attention to every player they have, and they, I always talk to. There's a lot. I'd say there's like five to maybe 7 or 8 really good second tier agents who have like maybe 7 to 10 guys a piece that I always recommend people when I meet a new player talking to, like, those are the guys that I think you should be with, because even if you're superstar, yeah, fine, the big agencies are going to work for you, but that you can't guarantee you're going to be a superstar, so you have to do this kind of thing.
But I think there's a bit of an agent spin here. I think it's
basically tons of agent spin here.
Because I think it's the opposite here. I think it's what's going on is there were teams that were not going to make any kind of inquiry on Roman Polak until they proved that he was close to being ready to be at a training camp and be able to skate and be fully recovered from the leg injury.
Yes, all right, but then there's this too, Mike. I think there is a sales job going on there, but I also think that, like when Roman Polak says, hey, I'm healthy and I'm the same guy I was last year, 75% of the teams in the league don't want that guy.
No, and I'm telling you, Roman Polak
he's slow.
Yeah, I mean, I had a really and it's a shame because I mean, Roman Polak's a good guy and everything like that.
He's a pretty good defender, but
pretty good defender. But he was starting to show his wear and tear in the Stanley Cup playoffs with San Jose.
Yeah,
in those series, they had to hide him. They had to really
right.
I mean, I remember talking to people and during about the games afterwards at the late night, NHL dinners and stuff like that, where people were talking about, man, did you see what Roman Polak? It was tough. It was tough at that time.
Right, but that did not stop Toronto from re-signing him after they had traded him to San Jose. And at the end of the year, in the first couple games of the playoffs, Mike Babcock moved Roman Polak up to the top 4. Now, you can say he did that because their defense is not that good and they had some inexperience on the blue line, but Babcock likes Polak, or at least he's liked in the locker room, and Babcock liked him. And with Alexei Marchenko going to the KHL, I think that the Walsh thing was a little bit of subtle pressure, not only on the Leafs, but on other teams to say, okay, this is a right-hand shot defenseman. He's comfortable playing in a bottom pairing role, but he can move up if necessary. He's a veteran guy. He's tough. He's this, he's that. I think Toronto could still be interested in him, and I think it's a possibility.
They might, but again, you can't worry about last year. Like basically, when you put Polak on the lineup, and let's say they play the Rangers, who are a step faster than last year, and they play the Flyers, who are a step faster than last year, then what Eck is talking about that happened in the playoffs is going to start happening more in regular season games.
Right. Well, no, right. But we're talking about him being essentially a role player. We're talking about him being bottom pairing, penalty killer, playing 14, 15 minutes a night. And we know that unless there's a dramatic decrease in his mobility based on the injury that he happened, which, I don't know how much the video proves, but I think that, it will give teams more of a willingness to think of him as an option. Cody Franzen is out there. We've heard rumors about him being invited on a professional tryout to, I think, New Jersey and Chicago. Dennis Weidman is still out there, but I don't know whether
Jimmy Hayes did get invited to a tryout with the Devils.
We're right now in the range, the time range where the professional tryouts are going to happen. It's like
the teams have stopped spending money for the most part.
Yeah,
but teams want to hold off now a little bit for cap space. When you get to the trade deadline, that's another thing you're starting to hear a lot of. So yeah, we want to have a little bit of room to move around. Although it doesn't mean they won't make a move if the right move does.
No, but the thing is, there really is not a great deal of difference between the PTO and a 1-year contract, because these agents negotiate an amount on these players that, like, if you make the team, this is what you're getting. I remember Mason Raymond a few years ago with the Leafs. Okay. He was invited on a PTO, but it was well known that Dave Nonis had negotiated a 1-year deal for, I think it was $900,000 before he even agreed to come on the PTO. So he had to make the team, but once he made the team, the deal that was negotiated was there.
I don't know if using Dave Nonis as an example is a good.
I know. But
I'm just saying.
I know,
but it's not always the case. I mean, a lot of times players on PTOs, will go just take a PTO because they'll get some ice time. PTOs are quite often favors. They're thrown back to like an agent or something like that. If you sign my player, can you get this guy in on a PTO? At least give him some playing time in the preseason so I can show him to other teams. That kind of thing. There's a lot that happens with PTOs. I remember one time I was at one of the Flyers had somebody on a PTO and he left after the first period of the game. Like he was on a PTO, he played the first period of the game and then got called by another team who wanted to sign him, so he left in the middle of the game. And that can happen. It was crazy. It was like very underplayed. No one wanted to talk about it, but it was like, is he hurt? Yeah, sure, he's hurt. That kind of thing. But then later,
I do have breaking news.
Go ahead.
I want to let everybody know that the Carolina Hurricanes just retweeted me because I said I may go cover a game just so I could eat those chicken and waffles. They look unbelievable. That's on their menu.
Wow. Go Canes. Excellent. Greatest place I ever covered Stanley Cup final. I love that down there.
Good for them, man. That looks great.
Yeah, that nice.
That was my one regret not covering in Nashville, was not getting that chicken.
I've never had legitimate chicken and waffles. You know what I'm saying?
I've never had legit chicken and waffles?
No, never have. I mean, like I've had buffalo chicken and waffles, which is, copycat chicken and waffles.
That's a bastardized version.
Yeah, I have never had chicken and waffles below the Mason-Dixon line.
We're talking about chicken, which is the same everywhere on the planet, by the way, and waffles, which are essentially the same everywhere.
No, but
like, come on.
Like buffalo chicken waffles is like, if you ever watch Schitt's Creek, they did an episode where they were selling fruit wine. It's the same concept.
Right, it's like having wings at Buffalo Wild Wings in Topeka, Kansas. It's not chicken wings in Buffalo.
Right.
Sure, I got you.
But no,
from this, shall we? Okay. No one has to put the time limit that we started talking about chicken and waffles every day in the comments. All right, guys know I'm a video hockey person, and I like video hockey games. A buddy put this out there. It's really kind of cool, and it's on. I don't know if you guys, if you ever used the Steam thing.
I've tried to use Steam. I've had trouble with it. I'll be honest.
Steam a lot, mainly for virtual reality, because that's where virtual reality games are. But it's also they have regular games as well.
Mike doesn't even know what we're talking about. It's all right.
Steam is you can play games online, and essentially, you don't have to. You can also download games. There's different things. This is one you can play online, and it's cheap, and it's a blast. All right, so I'm going to show you.
I'm still playing Atari.
That's what I got wearing today. Look, hey, there you go. Right. All right. So here's this. I want to show you guys this. This is
people forget the controllers used to pull out of the Ataris all the time and break at the end all the time.
Oh yeah. So
I broke the red button. I pressed the button too hard.
So this game is called Super Blood Hockey, and here it is. It's really cool. So if this looks familiar to you, it should, because this is very similar to another game that was one of my favorite hockey video games of all time. But as you can see, this is kind of taken to another level where, the players bleed like crazy when they get hit.
This is like hockey from the movie Swingers. Right.
No, that's exactly right. Very good call. That would be NHL. That would be Nintendo Ice Hockey, which I think I might even have. I usually have back here somewhere. I usually have my little cartridge back there. Nintendo Ice Hockey, which was the first Nintendo NES system, had this.
This looks like the Quebec Fighting League that I covered once.
But what this guy did is basically took it and just add a lot of blood to it. It's just a lot of. This game was always so much fun to play. The concept of this game is you can pause for a second. You can see okay, there's a pretty good example here. Or I'll get it to right about here. Say, all right, so you had 4 players on your team, and you got to pick the size of the players. So you can see this guy's about to shoot here is a big fat guy, and then next to him is a little thin guy. So there were these fat guys with hard shots who were slow. There were thin guys who were really fast, didn't have much of a shot at all. And then
there's only 2 fat guys in the entire NHL, though.
I know, yeah, I know. This is definitely. And then there's your middle-sized white guy, which Rob Lowe said is why hockey is so great. And Youngblood, middle-sized white guys can play it. So there's the middle-sized. So that's what you have in this game, and you basically have those 3 different. You can pick your team. Some people would go with all the slow fat guys. Some would go with the fast guys. So this game is so much fun to play on Nintendo Hockey, and it's really cool. I don't know if he must have gotten some kind of permission from Nintendo to do this, because this is it's such a close copy of it. But
it looks like a team of Boom Boom Jeffreyons swinging wildly at their opposite.
Listen, Boom Boom Jeffreyon scored a lot of NHL goals, so I don't know if you should use him as your example.
No, but Boom Boom Jeffreyon, don't you remember the stick swing?
But he could score goals too.
Oh, he could score goals, and he was a great goal scorer.
So that would be Super Blood Hockey, and you can find it at superbloodhockey.com.
You can find it at any Red Cross location.
Right. No, it's fun. It's absolutely one of the most fun games you can imagine out there. We have had a signing today as well.
Okay.
Mike, go ahead. Give us the. We have one of our Kerfoot.
Oh, Alex Kerfoot. Yeah, it was yesterday.
It was yesterday, but since we talked lately,
right? We talked about him. No, we talked about him yesterday, and we named a whole bunch of teams. But the one thing that we did say was that he would probably go to a place where he was going to get playing time. We factored that in, and a team that was not mentioned by anybody, no one, in terms of where he was going to go, he ended up signing with, which was the Colorado Avalanche. And apparently Joe Sakic did a great sell job on Kerfoot, saying, the opportunities that were there, signs the 2-year entry-level deal. And honestly, I think that in terms of playing time, that was a good signing for Kerfoot, is to go to a team right now. Your number 1 is McKinnon. Your number 2 at this point is Duchesne. If they play him at center, they could play him at the wing. So you've got an opportunity there to at least be the number 3 center. So I think that's a good move. And Russ, I know that we were talking off on the phone before the show about Butcher. This might be the approach of Butcher. I mean, if there are teams out there that he's supposedly narrowed down to 3 or 4 teams, he might go to a team that guarantees him playing time, like the team that you said he was talking to.
Yeah, I mean, back to Kerfoot just for a second. It seems like it came down to Colorado and the Rangers, because the way Larry Brooks sort of tweeted it was the Rangers got a call that, hey, he's going with Colorado. Now, maybe he called 3 or 4 other teams, but it does seem like those were the 2. And so, to me, it would make sense because of EC. But would Alain Vigneault guarantee him the playing time that Colorado would? Probably not. So that I could see why he would go there. And the same thing would hold for the Vegas Golden Knights for Butcher, because they're the team that could definitely guarantee him the most playing time right away. And of any team, any other team out there. And that, we have to remember, sometimes that's the most important thing to a player.
Right. No, I agree. And it is the most important thing, although, for a young player, not always the best thing, as we've talked about times. And I think that,
because you could have a very short run. Like if it doesn't work out.
Especially a defenseman, whatever, I would find a hard time with that. I mean, I would think that's a tough spot to put a rookie defenseman on that team, and then expect him to succeed. So Kerfoot is an Avalanche player. We talked about how the Avalanche needed to sign players. They have hardly any contracts.
They just need defense.
Yeah, they need players. So this is good. And the funny thing is, of course, but they lost Butcher, right? So Butcher was the guy that they thought they would get. So in a way, they made a trade essentially. You basically moved Kerfoot for Butcher for Kerfoot.
I did laugh too. There was something called like, I don't know, Avalanche Daily, some blog that said that Kerfoot was the top college guy out there, free agent to sign, and I was thinking,
denial.
Wait, you had another one.
Yeah, you happen to have one there.
But you didn't mention him. You mentioned
from Colorado, who played in Denver. The guy they had, Butcher, like played at the University of Denver. I mean, yeah.
But it made me laugh. You know, you could tell the slant.
Oh yeah. I want to show you something now that I think is one of the coolest things an NHL team has done in a long time. This is one of the, then we'll get on to the Calgary Flames. But this to me is one of the.
But Russ just showed the chicken and waffles.
No. It's a little even cooler than that.
That's hard to.
It's different everywhere. Here we go. So I'm going to show you this and see if we can hear this. I think what I'm going to say. Hold on. Okay, so playing day. Coming up.
This is our ice. All of ours. It belongs to the parents who taught us how to hold a stick and who drive us to practice every day. It's where we have won and learned to be gracious in victory. It's where we have fallen and learned to stand up again. This is our ice. So we will defend it with our sticks and our courage. And we will honor it with our greatest efforts because this is our state, our team, our ice.
Okay, so there's this. This is our ice campaign by the Minnesota Wild. Okay, but the concept of this is that's that's always been, and I love the fact that the Minnesota Wild marketing people play up on the Minnesota things as much as they do. Players want to play there. It's amazing. I think the whole thing is incredible.
I like it. I like the concept. It's a little schmaltzy, but I like it. But the idea is
here's the real part of it, Rush. Ready for this? What you can do now, between now and I think there's a date they're putting out. This just launched a half hour ago. Okay, so I'm not sure of all the details. I was trying to get this together because someone tipped me off on it this morning. I was trying to get all the details, but just launched a half hour ago. Okay, so on Saturday, September 16th, fans are invited to flood the rink at XL Energy Center. And what you're supposed to do is go to the pond that you learned to play hockey on and fill a vial of water, bring it to the XL Center, and dump it onto the XL Center rink. And they're going to freeze pond water from all over the state of Minnesota to be their rink for the Minnesota Wild.
That's cool. I like that.
Cool? I don't know. I think that's pretty amazing. I think it's a great.
That. See, now I thought if they were going to have an ice challenge, like the ice bucket challenge, that I would put up the Minnesota ice against Winnipeg's. I think the Winnipeg ice is a hardier ice.
Bro, yeah, no, I think it is hardier. But I think now
I love the concept of this.
You would never do this for the New Jersey Devils because
yeah, I was going to say I like the symbolism of this. But if they did this for, say, as you said, New Jersey, or if they did it for the Sabres, there would be certain areas of the ice that should be designated as toxic waste dumps.
Right. But this is Minnesota, so land of a billion lakes. They have.
If you did it in Jersey, you could put part of the face-off circle could have like an H for Hoffa.
Right. Or like you could bury the cake boss in there somewhere. Yeah. So.
Wow, that was angry.
Yeah. I'm tired of too many reality shows about cakes. So.
Oh my God.
Anyway, just throwing that out there as an aside. But I think this is a great thing, and I'm psyched about that they're doing this. And I kind of think that I wish if I was anywhere near Minnesota, or maybe I should send a vial to our buddy Dan out.
But you know what the problem is? Like on Long Island, when you played on the ice on a pond in Long Island, it was a retention pond. So yeah, you don't know what's in there.
I could take some of the water from my rink that's been sitting outside.
Oh, no.
As I have a stagnant pond out there right now.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Send it over there. Anyway.
I don't have a pond. Never mind.
Hashtag rink fail.
Yeah. Okay, here's the other thing. Eli Tolvanen. Okay. Eli Tolvanen, who's a big Predators prospect.
A Predators prospect. Should have gone a lot earlier.
Yeah, played his first KHL game last night and put a hat trick away in his opening game.
Youngest player to ever do it. Really impressive,
and great news for Predators fans who can always use scoring and offense on that team. So this guy is
a stone cold scorer. He is.
How long are we going to – is this the guy who plays 1 year in the KHL then comes in?
That's it. He's probably in the NHL next year. The only reason he pivoted to the KHL was because I think it was with BC that he wasn't going to be a good enough student, so then he was looking for another opportunity. Right. went to the KHL, and then I'm pretty sure next year they're going to give him a good look in Nashville.
Right.
Interesting.
The other KHL connected story that came out yesterday, apparently Mike Babcock and Lou Lamoriello took a trip to Russia. Now, they won't specify who specifically they were talking to, but the report came out from Sovietsky Sport that they contacted or were talking to a defenseman named Igor, and I'll butcher the last name, Oshaganov, who plays for CSKA Moscow. He's a former teammate of Nikita Zaitsev, 6'2", 210-pound right-hand shot defenseman. And this is around the same time 2 years ago that the rumors about the Leafs being interested in Zaitsev started to come out. So I almost get the impression that this is the Leafs' way of almost like marking their territory. This is a guy that we're interested in. We've gone over to Russia. We've talked to him. He's in our in our sphere of influence. Not stay away, but if they've done this and they've gone that far to do it, then it's more than likely that they're going to sign him when he's available and his contract ends at the end of the KHL season. I've heard some reports that he's a big defenseman with good skating ability, big shot from the point. He won the KHL hardest shot contest, and he's 25 years old. And for a team that next year is going to have to start paying, Nylander, Matthews, Marner, 8, 9, 10 million, whatever Matthews gets, maybe $10 million to get a defenseman who might be able to step in and be on an entry level of $925,000 for a year or 2 years. Those are the types of moves they're going to need to make. So I think this is, things can change. Apparently he's best buddies with Nikita Kucherov in Tampa Bay, and Kucherov was trying to get him to come to Tampa Bay, but
Lou can be very persuasive, as they say. Lou's very good with Russian players. I've noticed that before, and they let him.
And I'm waiting for the sort of the domino effect or the connection game to start. Like if they bring this guy and the Leafs sign him and he's best buddies with Kucherov, you will hear a whole slew of Kucherov to Toronto rumors probably in the next year or two. But I'm just saying.
Yeah, he's a pretty good talent from what I'm hearing, and so we'll see. I mean, the Kaprizov lit it up too in his second game. So there's still some KHL guys, and unfortunately these guys will be playing in the Olympics, and that's going to be a problem for teams that play against them. But the Leaf guy, we'll see if he makes the Olympic team.
Yeah, well, the thing that's weird is that Alexei Marchenko and Nikita Nestorov both got signed by CSKA, and this defenseman hasn't played the first 2 games. So it's because now the thing is, we've seen the Russians do this before, where a player who's on his way out, they're not going to give him preferential treatment because they don't want him to give him like more evidence for NHL teams to be interested in him. They're going to concentrate on the guys who they can hold on to or who they brought in. So he could be a spot player this year for them.
I think so.
Well, yeah, let's talk about the Flames.
The Calgary Flames. Sorry, I was getting a text right there. Sorry, you caught me off guard. I apologize.
No, it's okay.
All right, the Calgary Flames. Let's talk about the Calgary Flames. The Calgary Flames, one of the hardest working teams in the NHL. Always is what you always hear about them. They are coming off an interesting kind of regular season. The team played well. They ended up finishing first in the Western Conference wild card. On the last day of the season, which was a crazy thing that if you remember, they played the Predators in the last 2 of the last 3 games. They played the Predators and beat them twice, and this set in the course of action basically a road to the Stanley Cup for the Predators, based on matchups and stuff like that. That really was fascinating. I was really mad at the Predators at the time for losing this out because it's been we're gonna have to go against Chicago.
It was a bad thing for both teams, Zach, because because Calgary matched up against the team that they always get killed by, Anaheim, and Nashville had always had the problem against Chicago, and in one instance, the previous history played out. In the other instance, we know Nashville beat Chicago.
Well, there was an interesting thing about the Flames last year is there was sort of a tale of 2 seasons, and they month by month the Flames were a different team last year. And this is what I kind of really was when I was looking through their stuff. I was trying to find something unique about them, and I really thought this was a little bit unique. All right, so they were a 500 team in October, November, essentially. They were a little bit under 500. But then in December, they're 9-4. January, they're again under 500 by a little bit. But then in February and March, they're 9-2 and 10-4, respectively. So they had these runs where they were a good enough team, and this got them good enough to go. Then they go into, like you say, into like no man's land and have to deal with the Anaheim Ducks, and the Ducks just take them out in 4 games. In what is in a series, right, that doesn't even look like, I mean, do Calgary Flames fans even remember you were in the playoffs type of thing? Like this was like so fast and so quick.
Yeah, but it was still a good year for them.
But the interesting thing about the playoffs was, and even though they only played 4 games, Sean Monahan had 4 goals and looked really good. There were moments, and of course, the other thing about last year that has to be noted is the Brian Elliott story, right? Which was like that Elliott was basically when I'd say about those, the record, that very much mirrors what Brian Elliott was like, where Elliott was so in the beginning of the year, had a really strong streak in the last 3 months of the season, essentially. Got them into the playoffs, and then in the playoffs, Elliott kind of fell apart again on them. If you can call Anaheim falling apart,
and that's why they'll be in better shape this year with Smith. I mean, I think Mike Smith will have a really good year for him. I think their offense is great. Like their offense should be really, really top notch. I think you'll get 50 points out of Tkachuk. I wouldn't be shocked if Gaudreau leads the team. I wouldn't be shocked if Hamonic has a really resurgent year. I mean, that's a hell of a guy to add to the blue line. I think Jankowski might be able to make the team. I mean, they've got size, they've got speed, they've got goaltending, they've got defense. Really, the only thing that could kill them would be injuries. And I actually, with 2 points in 4 games, I love the fact that they picked up Curtis Lazar. I mean, that's a really good role player for the bottom 6 that –
yes, that was an enormous. That's what I was going to say. It was a really sneaky move that is going to pay dividends down the line, but didn't yet. It will, absolutely. They stole Lazar in my mind. Yeah. That was like, and because Lazar was just for some reason was one of those situations that just wasn't working out. But he goes there. I totally agree with you on that one. An interesting thing. So their offense, you say, is good, but last year it really wasn't.
I know, but I think this year it will be.
Gaudreau missed some time. Played 72 games still. It felt like Gaudreau missed more than that. Didn't it? It
did feel that way.
If I was to say Gaudreau played games, I would have said he played like 60 games last year. But looking at the stats, he played 72, had 61 points, only 18 goals, which is not very Johnny Gaudreau like at all.
But he got off to a slow start after signing the big contract, so I think that was a factor. You had Monahan and you had Gaudreau under their new big deals, and they're younger players, so they're putting pressure on themselves. But I agree with Russ. I mean, there's offense there. They got more offense than they expected out of a guy like Chris Versteeg, who was coming, who's a journeyman guy, but he performed well. They've got those sort of middle of the lineup veterans like Frolik and Brouwer, and a veteran in Matt Stajan who has helped them for a while. But I think the key is Tkachuk on his second year, and as we mentioned before, Sam Bennett. If Sam Bennett signs and he plays in a primary role, I think he's got the ability to join Gaudreau and Monahan as a top player on that team. And their defense, I mean, Weidman's gone. Hamonic is not going to provide a lot of offense. He's more of a shutdown guy. But a top 4 of Giordano, Hamilton, Brody, and Hamonic could be the best top 4 in the NHL. So that battle between Calgary and Edmonton is going to be a bloodbath, and it's going to be interesting to watch.
No, it's going to be great. I mean, they've definitely geared towards becoming a defensive team with the pickups of Hamonic. And the other defenseman they picked up again.
Well, they had Michael Stone, and they signed him too. So
right, Michael Stone was that was huge, and kind of went and flew under the radar because it happened while so much else was going on. But to me, the biggest problem last year that has to be corrected is their first line, although is very, very talented offensively, Gaudreau, Monahan, and I guess who else would you put on that line? It was like
At times they put I think they put Versteeg on that line. It was
on that line. Bennett was on that line at different times too, I think. So when you look at that line, they were the horrible minuses of the team. Like, it's a strange thing. Like, your top scoring line was terrible plus minus wise. Monahan was only a -1. Gaudreau was a -7. Bennett was a -16. Versteeg was a -11. Brouwer was a -11. So but basically their best players got smoked every night. That's what happened.
They did.
And they managed somehow to to still be in there. But
I got to add one more thing, and then I got to run.
Yeah.
Their defense is so deep that, like, Oliver Shillington will start the year again in Stockton, but he had a nice year. He had 27 points. And so all of a sudden, the offense that was talked about him in the draft that some people said wouldn't be there may just be a little bit more. And so that's a guy that they could sub in there too. So Calgary will be there. I mean, Calgary is a playoff team. They could go to the conference final. Wouldn't shock me.
I want to ask you real quick, Russ, then you go on two prospects before you go. So Tyler Parsons, the goalie, obviously I think bringing in Smith with an eye on Parsons being their guy eventually.
Parsons or Gillies? I mean, I like them both.
Yeah, I hear more about Parsons these days. I used to hear more about Gillies, but
well, you do because he's Canadian and he's just coming off a really good run, and Gillies is coming off a hip surgery. I still think there'll be a battle between the two. I do. Someday.
Mark Jankowski,
Jankowski, I think, can make the team. I mean, he's got size. His speed is better. He's got great hands down low. And so something tells me, and look, he is a center, but if you're trying to pick up Jaromir Jagr, but you feel like you're short a winger, I might put Jankowski on the wing.
And another guy they signed, Spencer Fu, as a undrafted free agent.
I don't think he'll make the team.
I don't think he'll make the team, but I think he's in the mix that possibly if he has some success in the American Hockey League that he can move up. But they've got some options with young players that they can tap into. But I think it's gonna be those guys. It's gonna be Monahan. It's gonna be Goudreau. And I mean, the reason they had to play them last year and they had such big minuses is because they weren't getting enough offense out of everybody else. So they probably overplayed them, and they were a liability in some instances.
Oh yeah, no, that's definitely the case, and that can happen. They let Alex Chiasson go, into free agency now, and no one's picked him up yet. But Chiasson was a 12 guy, played 81 games for them. He was a big player for them to just let go. Kind of a strange move. Usually guys who play 80 games don't just could let go to free agency. I think Stajan's turned into exactly what he should be there, over time. I think that, and he's
a solid veteran guy.
They have a lot of players who played like 80 games or more last year, which is kind of interesting. They weren't that beaten down by injuries. I mean, there were some key injuries, of course. Tkachuk played 76 games, had 48 points. I think that's got to be better. But the big thing about Matthew Tkachuk that is shocking when you look at it, he was a plus 14. So
yeah, and that line, it was Tkachuk, Backlund, and Frolik. And Backlund had a really good year last year, and that line is going to be key. But the name that was mentioned before, Lazar has an offensive upside that he really didn't tap into in Ottawa, and then maybe with a second chance, maybe being in a different role in Calgary, that he can step up and score, in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 goals. I mean, it may not be out of the realm of possibility for him to do that.
Now, a lot of people are saying, with the addition of Hamonic, that they have kind of put themselves into that top level of maybe the top 5 defensive teams in the league. Because Brody was very good last year as well, and it got better as the year went along, right? And obviously Giordano had another great year, and they have this they're very solid. Weidman's going, that doesn't really even affect them so much because.
No, and you know what? You can't underestimate the positive effect that Mike Smith's ability to handle the puck behind the net is going to have on that defense. I mean, they're already deep. Like I said, as their top 4, top 5 might be the best in the league. He's like another defender back there. He gets out of the net, he handles the puck, he passes it out behind the net very well. I mean, that's definitely a benefit for them. Yeah,
and Dougie Hamilton, of course, has really turned into the player that people thought he would. That it took a while, but he definitely, the move from, I thought the first year he played in Calgary was, a little bit less than spectacular, but this year was right there. He was,
he started playing better as soon as Brian Burke came out and said that he wasn't being traded, and so
because the rumors around him were circulating from almost the moment he got there. So it was pretty good, and I mean, I think this is a team. It's an interesting team in terms of the fact that you've got a Brian Burke there. I
think they're a playoff team. I think they're definitely a playoff team. I think that they could finish probably third in the West. I mean, you're talking Anaheim, Edmonton, Calgary. I mean, LA, I think is starting to take a step back. I think they could finish as high as second, maybe third in the Pacific.
Yeah. I think they're a playoff team. I do, because I just think the defense is going to be so good, and I am a big Mike Smith fan. Like I do think Mike Smith will be a stabilizing force for them. I agree with what you're saying. His handling of the puck will be. It'll take a little bit of getting used to because it does, but there will be some miscues early on because he's so active with the puck. He loves to handle the puck. I mean, I remember interviewing him when he first came into the league, and I asked him what his favorite part of goaltending was, and he's the first goalie who ever said to me handling the puck. Which is really shocking, because I mean, a lot of goalies like handling the puck, but they won't say that's their favorite part of goaltending.
Yeah, and if Glenn Gulletson has the same problem with Eddie Lack that Bill Peters had in Carolina, they do have Gillies and they do have Parsons as an option. But I think Lack is an NHL goaltender, so him being the backup to Smith and playing probably in the neighborhood of 25 games would probably. I think that's what's going to end up happening, and I think he's a capable number 2. So that
feels kind of bad for Eddie Lack. It feels like he keeps getting put to spots where he thinks he's going to get really good playing time, and then ends up being the backup. It's another situation.
I mean, their goaltending last year. I mean, I'm not the biggest Brian Elliott fan. Their goaltending last year, when Elliott was on, they were winning. When Elliott was playing, like Elliott sometimes does, which is like he's got his head up certain.
Yeah.
It's puzzling how somebody at certain times can be so good and then at other times can be so bad, and that's at times that's what he was in Calgary.
He looked way better. I mean, and people don't really take into account like the record with Elliott was way better than it was with Chad Johnson, even though Chad Johnson was playing pretty well for a while there.
Early in the year, Chad Johnson saved their season because
they saved their season for a couple weeks there for sure. Gillies came in and had a really strong game. He played each played one game basically. Gillies played one game.
Yeah.
And then they had Rittich play in the game just for a period, I think. But Gillies was strong. This is a team that I think there's a couple guys that I also, the other prospect I wanted to talk about was Rasmus Andersson, who's still a ways off, but he's a really top defenseman. A Swedish guy that I think is going to be a factor for them. They have a silly amount of defensemen on this team, and they really are set there, which they're going to need, being that they are going to have to play Edmonton all the time. So,
but their big question mark area is secondary scoring. You would assume that Gaudreau and Monahan will score. It's whether they get the same year out of Backlund, whether they get the same amount of offense out of Frolik, whether Matthew Tkachuk avoids the sophomore slump, whether Bennett can step up, whether Lazar can step up. If they get 2 or 3 of those things happening, then they're okay. If they all fall back and it's just the Gaudreau and Monahan show, then if you shut them down, they lose. That's tough. So I think that's going to be the key. I think they'll get the goaltending. Their defense is really good. It's whether they can score enough goals, and that's going to be the secondary offense and not the top guys.
I think the health of Gaudreau is the key to this team. Really, sure. I mean, I think that we don't know how injured he was last year. He wasn't 100% for sure. And the fact, just by the number, the fact that he put up 43 assists, that's not what you want Gaudreau to do. Like, I mean, he's a great playmaker, but you really want him to be looking to shoot more than that. And I think a lot of that had to do with the injury. I think he was making plays. He was moving, he was setting up Monahan. I would like to see him play more with Tkachuk, in terms of the fact that I think Tkachuk could open up some space for Gaudreau. But, that's what, in my opinion, I would like to see, because Gaudreau is he's so fast and so quick, obviously. Monahan opens up space for Gaudreau right off the bat, for sure. But they really need that perfect other player on that line, and they don't have it yet, I don't think. I don't think there's the right guy there. As good as, as we talk about the big minuses that they were, their top defensive pairing were big pluses. So it's kind of, that's kind of strange that big minus from the top offensive line does stand out in a big way. I mean, they only had one All-Star last year, in Gaudreau. And I think, was he even picked to the team by the fans? Maybe. I think he may have been.
I'm not sure.
But they didn't have that. They had definitely a tough season for them in a lot of ways. And to make the playoffs was impressive, but then, like you said, to actually beat out the Predators and have to deal with the Ducks was a problem.
Yeah, but I think that they addressed their area, two of their big areas of concern. I think they solidified themselves between the pipes. I think Smith is an upgrade over Elliott and I think Smith and Lack is an upgrade over Elliott and Johnson. They kept, Michael Stone was a top 4 Band-Aid that they acquired from Arizona for I think it was like a 4th round pick or something like that. And they got him re-signed, and they add Hamonic to give their defense. I mean, their defense will be mobile enough and capable enough to try to be able to shut down McDavid and Draisaitl and Edmonton, which is what you have to do. And like I said, the only question is whether they'll be able to score enough goals to hang with the Oilers and the Ducks. Well, we'll see.
Yeah. And I still question, and I mean, my question mark will still be what happens with Alex Chiasson, because I know he's got issues as far as defensively goes, but I still think that he was a young player who they didn't give a lot of minutes to, but did manage to score, very similar to what we talked about. Athanasiou, who I heard actually rumored possibly being traded. I haven't written this yet, but Athanasiou could possibly be on the move to Columbus. So we'll see about that. That's another possibility there. That does seem like something the Blue Jackets would do. This is about the time they got Sam Gagner last year, the Blue Jackets, which was a really sneaky move. So, this will be good. The one thing you have to wonder about is, how good will Winnipeg be? How good will Dallas be? Because those are the two teams that I think have a shot at legitimately knocking Calgary out of the playoffs. Both have,
if Calgary's in the wild card race, if they're top,
a wild card team, though, still in my opinion. But maybe I mean, I think Anaheim, Edmonton, and San Jose are all better than Calgary.
I don't know. San Jose, with the departure of Marleau, with Thornton coming off an ACL injury, they're still a really good team, but I think that them being a lock for a top 3 spot, and we'll talk about this more when we preview the Sharks. I think that's tenuous. I think Calgary is deeper in certain areas. And, I'm not saying Mike Smith is as good as Martin Jones, but I think the gap has been closed significantly. So that's why I think Calgary has a legitimate shot to finish 2nd or 3rd, and San Jose is more like 3rd or wild card. Yeah.
I mean, and we'll definitely get into this a lot more when we talk about the playoffs and our predictions. But the one thing that kind of struck me when I was going through this today was that I see 4 teams. I see 5 teams in the West that I don't think are playoff teams, and can't ever remember that being the case. Like that's really pretty significant. Like I don't think Colorado, Vancouver, Arizona, LA, or Vegas are playoff teams. So I'm going to throw that. I don't think any of them are playoff teams this year. So
the only one who could would be LA if Quick is quick.
If Quick is amazing and healthy all year, and they really get. But the other. So you're taking 5 teams out, which means that you only have, 2 teams in there that could, and that's why when I look at Winnipeg and Dallas, I think Dallas is a playoff team. So, because with the additions they've made and all this stuff, and I think that they're good enough to be a Dallas team. So really it comes down to.
It means 10 teams fighting over 8 spots. Yeah.
Yeah, which is really not the way the West has been for many years. No. The West has been much more of a, maybe 1 or 2 teams not in there. But, usually you can't eliminate that many teams before the season. Now, that being said, of course, what's going to happen? One of those or 2 of those teams are going to go on a crazy run at the beginning of the year, and they're going to be in there.
It's not going to be a great deal of difference in terms of amount of games, but the teams in the Pacific are going to have a little bit of an advantage over the teams in the Central because they play Vegas 4 times, and the other team in the other division I think plays them 2 or 3. And that 2 to 4 points against a team that is probably not going to win a ton of games could be the difference between making and missing the playoffs.
And the teams that are going to be affected by that, Minnesota, St. Louis, and Nashville, I think, because one of those teams could end up being in trouble as far as the playoffs go.
Yep.
As it all plays out. Who knows if I think Chicago is still a playoff team for sure, but
yes.
But they have definitely got to rebound, and I think the Predators have to look at it like they barely made the playoffs last year, even though they had the great runs. They still have to battle for sure, and they're still going to battle. And Rene's getting older, so there's a lot we're going to get into with that, but. Yeah, Calgary's a fun team to look at. We'll talk more about. We'll get into another team tomorrow. I'm not sure quite. Yeah, pretty much going in order, but we're trying as best if we can get somebody to talk to schedule like we're trying to get by Ty on to talk about Boston, that kind of thing. So that's why we skipped Boston and Buffalo for now. But we'll be moving on. We wanted to get to a Western Conference team as well. So there you go, guys. Remember, without the buzz, it is just real quick before I go. Patreon t-shirts are being made today. I will have some to show off for you tomorrow. They will be going in the mail. I'm assuming probably Monday in all likelihood. Submit. This is the last time to go on patreon.com/hockey, become a member. Just help support our site, our podcast here. Every cent you put in there goes to just paying the people who run this thing and make this work. And it's really important that that we have some support to do this, because Mike and Russ and these guys, they work really hard. So let's make sure that we can do that. Patreon.com/hockey. If you get any value out of this at all, like if you want to put in a nickel a month, that would be awesome. And then if and also make sure you check out the messages on there to find out how you can get a t-shirt. It's really not hard. So just give me your you'll see where to mail the specifics. So the t-shirt's kind of cool. It says "Without the Buzz," it's just hockey on it. It's pretty neat. It's a cool little thing. It has doesn't have a picture of any of us, so it's worth wearing. And that's it. Without the Buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you tomorrow.